The Razorback basketball team finally ends the long losing streak down in Gainesville. The Razorbacks also have clutch plays from clutch players, although it may not come at the earliest of moments. And also, let's talk a little bit about Kentucky. This is the Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. It finally ended. Thank goodness. The losing streak down in Gainesville, the one that you had lost 14 straight, the one you haven't won down in since 1995, all those stats finally came to an end last night. And then great. Like, it's so great to finally have that come to an end. And I'm going to talk about the game more in the next segment. I will. And do some breakdowns and talk about those clutch players and everything. But I wanted to start with this, though. This is the year of streaks coming to an end for Razorback athletics so far. And when I mean this year, I'm not talking about just 2022. I'm talking about the 2021, 2022 school year, academic year, because that's kind of course, in the way of college athletics, how everything is viewed. And we just continue to see losing streaks, particular streaks, all come to an end and have come to an end so far this year. Let's break it down, shall we? In football, we know that there were a lot of streaks that came to an end, that had to come to an end, and thank goodness that they came to an end. In fact, that's the one in the one sport especially where you had the most streaks that were so frustrating and so annoying, but finally came to an end. It started off with the Texas A&M game. You had lost to Texas A&M every single time since 2011. It had been literally a decade since you had last beaten Texas A&M. And you finally were able to do it this year. You hadn't beaten LSU and had the Golden Boot since 2015. You had never beaten Ed Orgeron. You had never won that game. And you went down to Baton Rouge and you were able to win that game in overtime. You hadn't beaten Missouri since 2015, which that one was just the dumbest one of all time. It was so frustrating. Like, how in the world are you losing to this team so many times? Especially a team, like, it's one thing to lose to LSU all the time, but to lose to Missouri, a team that is inferior to you more often than not, it was frustrating. But that came to an end this year. Your bowl bid, then playing in a bowl game, you hadn't played in one since 2016. That finally came to an end, where you played in the Outback Bowl and you won the Outback Bowl. A lot of streaks, a lot of losing streaks came to an end. In fact, I guess the matter of 4 straight losing seasons that you had, with Brett Bielema's 4-8, then 2-10, then 2-10, and then 3-7 in Pittman's first year because of the COVID year. You got that off your back too. So, like, in football, you had all of these streaks come to an end. Now, looking at it and shifting it to basketball, there's already been a few streaks that have come to an end. The 3-point streak. We know that one came to an end. That one's not a good one. That one sucks. I like that streak, but it did come to an end this year. Your losing streak against number one teams in the country. You had not beaten a number one team in a long time, and you've never beaten one in Fayetteville, ever. That streak came to an end this year. You know, you being able to go on the road down to Florida and win this game and to finally get that monkey off your back after the longest losing streak of any road environment you've ever had. You finally got a chance to win that game as well. Mississippi State, you had a losing streak against. You finally beat them. You took care of business against them. And who knows what's going to happen with Kentucky, because you haven't beaten Kentucky at home since 2014. So the point is, those are just the ones off the top of my head. The point is that you have had streaks come to an end. I guess in baseball, if you want to throw this another negative one, you lost your opening series game for the first time since 1994, another streak that came to an end. This seems to be the year of streaks coming to an end for Razorback athletics, whether it's good or bad. And I can't help but think, because of the majority of them being positive ones and being good ones, ones that you wanted to end, the vast majority, because honestly, the other two that were negative, I guess, were, not that big of a deal. Like the 3-point streak ending and losing the opening game, if that's the worst streaks that are coming to an end, I think you're okay. But since the majority of them have been really positive streaks that have come to an end, it makes you think and wonder why. Like, why is all of a sudden this being the year where these things are starting to come to an end, and you're starting to get those monkeys off your back, and you're finally starting to get over that and get over those humps. And I don't know if there's really a good, exact, direct reason as to why that is the case. But what I would contribute it to, if I had to break it down and look at it, what I would contribute it to is the thing that we've been talking about for so long when it comes to Arkansas athletics, is the changing of the tide, a complete and total reversal, a thing where you are able to, across the board, across the entire athletic department, develop into a winning, successful mentality that has been able to carry on and spread like wildfire throughout the programs, to where these things that have haunted you, these demons that have come at you, that's constantly been just putting the pressure on you to finally do this, to finally win this, to finally get over this. You have exercised those demons, and you have finally got them off your back. And therefore, it can open up so many more opportunities to continue to be great programs across the board. Maybe that's way too complicated and extravagant way of looking at it, but that's the way I'm going to look at it. In football, you had a complete and total overhaul with Sam Pittman, and the way that he's approached the game, the way that he's approached football, and the way that he's been able to make Arkansas successful, especially last year. He knew that there were demons that needed to be exercised, and he was the right man to exercise those demons. He was the right man to instill the confidence and the right mentality, physically and mentally, into his team to say, hey, let's get these off our back. Let's leave these behind. This isn't the old Arkansas team that's just, golly gee shucks, I hope we win. Like, we're going to establish ourselves as a premier football program, but we can't do it until we take care of these teams that have haunted us, until we finally get ahead of these teams that have constantly been coming at us for forever. We got to get out of this. And I think that that's one of the reasons, if not the reason, why in football everything's changed. It wasn't something that was plaguing you. It was something you reversed, you put on its head. It motivated you to go out and to get it done. And I think it's been the same way in basketball too. Maybe not to this extent, because basketball didn't go through the horrific stages that football did, but it was still able to have a coach in Eric Musselman that has instilled a priority of a program into toughness, into working extremely hard, into not letting anything be too big for you. The moments, the games, the pressures, the situations, none of it is too big for you. And when you have that confidence that no matter what happens, and no matter who you're going up against, no matter the situation that you find yourself in, when you're able to have that confidence, not only in yourself, but in your team and in your coaching staff and in everything, that, hey, we're just fine, we got this. That's how all these streaks begin to come to an end and continue to come to an end. When Arkansas beat Auburn in basketball, I don't think that anything was about, well, we've had this long losing streak against the number one team, and we haven't beaten the number one team ever in Fayetteville. And I don't think it was ever anything like that. I think it was, hey, we're just as good as these guys. We're the Arkansas Razorbacks. We're a great basketball team. We can beat these guys. And you did. I think it's the same thing that Eric Musselman was instilling when on the road to Florida, for instance. I know that everybody knows about that losing streak. I mean, even after the game, JD Note was talking about, hey, well, he's like, he wasn't even born the last time Arkansas won down there. Like, everybody had to know about it if you were on the team. And instead of, running from it or, not embracing it or whatever it may be, the Razorbacks kind of took it on the onus and said, hey, this comes to an end. We're not allowing this to happen anymore. We're not allowing us to be a team that you can just ride off that they're going to take an L in Gainesville. We're not going to allow that to happen anymore. The confidence, the making of plays, no matter what happens, no matter what the other team does, is a mentality that's instilled into the program with toughness. Now in baseball, we'll see how it happens. Maybe the losing streak of not having a College World Series championship comes to an end this year. I mean, why not? The streaks are there and the streaks are alive. Maybe this can finally be the case. Still got a lot of season left. We just started with baseball. But the point is that you have gotten an entire athletic department and an entire coaching staff that understands the importance of success and how to actually maintain and execute said success. And it comes down to a simple thing: confidence. Confidence. Confidence in yourself, confidence in your team, confidence in what you're doing. When you have that confidence, everything else becomes secondary. Everything else also falls into place. When you believe in yourself that you're able to do the things that you need to do to be able to win these games and to not allow some sort of pressure of some losing streak or whatever it may be to haunt you, as long as you don't allow that to creep in, you got the confidence to go out and win the game. That's what's going to make a program a difference and make it different from what you've had before. That's what Arkansas has right now. And I think that they'll be able to keep it up. And I hope that these losing streaks and these negative streaks and these things that, who knows, like SEC championship, the tournament. Arkansas hasn't won that since 2000. Maybe this is the year. Maybe it all comes together for the Razorbacks in basketball. Maybe all those losing streaks come to an end. It's looking good right now, but we'll see if they can keep it up. Kentucky comes up this weekend. We will talk about that here in just a second. But first, I got to tell you about Built Bar. We know that with these New Year's resolutions that you've probably set yourself, it's tough to maintain and keep that healthy weight. But luckily for all of you, we have a deal here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast that if you go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, you will get 15% off your next order. And if you go to the website, you'll see exactly how incredible of a deal that is, because they have all the different flavors to choose from. They're healthy. They're covered in 100% chocolate, and they taste amazing. Like, I'm not just telling you this. I have them. I keep them in stock at my apartment. Like, I have to have them every single day because they're great. They taste good. It doesn't feel like I'm tasting a regular protein bar, but it's just as healthy, and in most cases healthier than all your other protein bars. 17 grams of protein in these things. So be sure to go over and take advantage of the great deal that we're offering you here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Just go to built.com, enter in promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order at builtbar.com.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so let's actually talking about the Razorback basketball game itself, because, this was I don't want to say it was like just the greatest game of all time, but Arkansas scored 82 points on the road against a Florida team that is really good defensively. And I think that this might be one of the more satisfying wins that I've seen Arkansas have in basketball so far this year. Not just because it was Florida and you finally ended that losing streak, but listen to these stats, because we know what kind of the formula was for Arkansas. They've held opponents under 40% shooting. They always won those games. They held them to 60 or less points. They always won those games. Or what turnovers, fouls, whatever you want to put into it. But what happens when those things don't come into play? What happens when suddenly the other team is shooting really well? And what happens if you're fouling more than the other team? What happens if they're not turning the ball over at a high clip? And what happens if their star player is just yakking on you? Well, that's what happened in this Florida game. Think about this. Florida shot 45% from the field. 45%. They opened up from three just on fire. They ended up being 32%, 8 of 25, but still on fire. They shot 14 of 18 from the free throw line. Really hit it there. They only committed 9 turnovers in this game. 9 turnovers. They had 15 assists. They also only committed 18 fouls, which they ended up actually switching. I thought Arkansas committed, or Florida committed, or I thought Arkansas committed more than Florida, but it was actually reversed. But I think at the end of the game, it changed, which we'll talk about. But still committed 18 fouls. Colin Castleton, that guy's a goob. Like, that guy was just like, I really don't like you. And Florida always has those big white dudes that, like, I just don't like. Chandler Parsons, was it Matt Bonner, I think was his name. I had a guy named Walsh that I didn't like. It's like there's always got one of those guys, and this dude's no different. Colin Castleton was just a troll, but he went crazy with it. He had 29 points in this game, which is kind of funny because he only ended up with 6 rebounds. He wasn't even the leading rebounder on this team. Okay, you're that big dude and you can't get rebounds. Come on now. But he went crazy. Like he was big time for Florida. Those are their stats. And if I told you those were going to be the stats for Florida, you'd probably be like, well, Arkansas ain't winning that game. But Arkansas did. In fact, they won it by 8 points in this one. You know why? Because Arkansas shot 46% from the field. They shot 39% from three-point land. They shot 85% from the free throw line. Offense was extremely good. JD Note is still incredible. Goes for 22 points in this game, 7 of 18 shooting, 2 of 5 from three-point land. Also went 6 of 7 from the free throw line. And yet another great performance. Honestly, Devo. This was Devo's best game. I don't even think it's close. 19 points for Devo Davis, 7 of 10 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3. He had 6 rebounds, and he also had 4 assists, 0 turnovers. Yeah, I'll take that all day long. Stanley Amude, he didn't have a great shooting, 9 4 of 10, but still 11 points, 6 rebounds, had an assist, and also had 3 steals. So that was a big get for him too. And Jalen Williams, you can't forget him, took another billion charges in this game. 15 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 0 turnovers for Jalen Williams once again. 7 of 13 from the field. Arkansas just they find so many different ways to constantly pour it in. And DC Tony had 12 points too. Like, they just find different ways to win. And considering that this was a game where the formula was not there for Arkansas. Like, Florida was like, they played great. They probably played one of their best games of the year. Offensively, they were incredible. And their star player goes for almost 30. And they still lose at home. That does not happen. It does not happen. But it happened to Florida. And that's why this is one of the most encouraging wins, and why I just continue to believe in this Razorback basketball team. It's because they find ways to win when the other team is they can do whatever. Go for 30 points, all right? Go do that. Only commit 8 turnovers, 9 turnovers, whatever it may be. Fine, do it. We're still going to beat you. Saw stat too between Castleton and Kessler for Auburn. Combined, they went for like 45 points and 25 rebounds. Like something stupid like that. And 9 block shots combined. They both went home with L's. Those are 2 big-time players that are big, physically too, that had their way with Arkansas. But because of the great coaching that Eric Musselman has and the great way that this team is executing game plans, they adjust, they find different ways to win. I love this. Like, this was one of the best and most encouraging games I have had a chance to watch so far this year. And so kudos to Razorback basketball, and kudos to Eric Musselman, kudos to everybody around. It's not an easy place to win out down there in Gainesville. And now it's like, where's the world going to stop you? I saw that the Arkansas's net ranking actually didn't move up at all after beating Florida. They're still in the 23rd, I think, in the net rankings, but that's a huge win. That's a good win. That's a Q1 win, I'd even say, because we know Arkansas's got one of the most difficult schedules remaining. But 3 games remain. 3 games remain for the Razorback basketball team, and we know which one's coming up next. And we're going to give our reactions to that here in just a second. But first, I got to tell you about BetOnline. Football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam, both pro and college. From the latest odds, totals, player performance props, and where to find the next fired coach and where he's going, BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right down to Olympic coverage and information. So head over to the website today and use your mobile device and learn more about the trends in action over at BetOnline.net, where the game starts.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, so final segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Arkansas have 22-6, 11-4 in conference play. Like, it still just blows my mind to think that they're at this point in time, like just from where we were a couple weeks ago. Gotta move my chair a little bit. But we know who they're playing this Saturday. It's Kentucky. It's the Kentucky Wildcats, for those of you who don't know. Kentucky, a top 5 team, and maybe one of the best teams in the country right now. It's Kentucky. And you get them at home in Bud Walton Arena on a Saturday at 1 p.m. CBS, as God intended, the way it should be with Arkansas and Kentucky. And if I'm not mistaken, I'll need Hogs stats on here. I'll have to check with him. But if I'm not mistaken, at least in my rigorous research, this is going to be the first time Arkansas and Kentucky have met in Bud Walton Arena, where both teams are ranked in the top 20 this millennium. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that. And with Arkansas and the way that they're playing right now, especially defensively, the expectation for a lot of fans is going to be they got to win this one. Now, Kentucky plays LSU tonight, which I'm going to watch that game. I'm going to be interested to see how that goes down and see if we can do a little scouting report on it. But, I mean, it does – when Kentucky comes to – this is something that these idiot Auburn fans could not figure out. These idiot Auburn basketball fans that just became basketball fans 3 years ago. When Arkansas played Auburn, rushed the court and all that, they didn't do that because of Auburn. They did that because it was the number 1 team in the country. It could have been number 1 Vanderbilt. It could have been number 1 South Carolina. It could have been number 1 Missouri. It wouldn't have mattered. If it was the number 1 team in the country and they came into Bud Walton Arena and Arkansas beat them, they would have rushed the court. It has nothing to do with you, Auburn. It was just the number next to your name. But Kentucky, as much as I hate them, it's Kentucky. It doesn't matter what number is next to their name. Sure, it helps, especially this year compared to what they were last year. They're a top 5 team. That definitely matters. But this year, when you got the trifecta of facing Kentucky, a highly ranked Kentucky team, and Bud Walton Arena, those are the things that was going to make this game the biggest game of the year, the most exciting game of the year. Gives it a little throwback to what it was like in the mid-90s when these teams were really good and going at each other every single year. Definitely gives you that vibe. And I can't wait. I can't imagine. Like, Kentucky always just makes me nervous no matter what, even if it's at home, because it's still Kentucky. Like, Kentucky's a really good basketball team. They're really talented. Home courts and opposing courts, that doesn't affect them. Like, they went up to Fog Allen Fieldhouse in Kansas and wrecked the Jayhawks. You don't think that atmosphere was insane? Now, Bud Walton will be just as insane, if not more insane. It absolutely will. But the whole home court thing does not bother Kentucky. Doesn't faze them. If you want to beat Kentucky, you got to play better than Kentucky. Fans will do their part, and the energy will do their part. And it can't hurt to have it at home. But it's going to come down to these players playing their great defense, staying out of foul trouble if you're J.D. Note, and Jalen Williams especially, causing turnovers, doing really good at keeping, Kentucky off the three-point line too. Because last year, you almost lost that game because Kentucky hit like 15 threes on the road. You still won. But this is going to be the biggest game of the year, bigger than Auburn. Just being honest. It's Kentucky. And if you win this game, you'll have 2 games left, so you don't want to put the cart before the horse. But if you win this game, that puts you in a different stratosphere for where you're being talked about as a 5 seed, maybe in the NCAA tournament. Suddenly you become a 3 seed, like overnight. And if you keep winning and keep winning and keep winning, best case scenario, 2 seed. 2 seed, and we're talking about pie in the sky. There's a lot they have to take care of before they get to that. But it starts with Kentucky this Saturday. I hate Kentucky. I hate John Calipari. I hate Ashley Judd, as you can tell from the sign behind me. I am not a fan of Kentucky whatsoever. I really, really, really want to beat them very, very badly. I'm just so glad it's at home, and I'm so glad that we all get to witness it on Saturday on CBS, 1 o'clock. I don't know who's going to be on the call, but I really hope it's Bill Rafferty and Kevin Harlan. That would be awesome. But hey, we'll have to wait and see. Appreciate everybody listening into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see